sometimes feel like a lot, but you don't have to do it alone. I strongly believe that we're stronger together. Here, we're going to slow down, have real talks, make sense of things together, and explore ways to intentionally grow the life you want. We're going to talk about mental and physical health, relationships, money, work, and community. Welcome to Rooted in Intention with me, Karina Gomez. Hi, everyone. I'm Karina Gomez, and I'm the host of the Rooted in Intention podcast. And welcome. Thank you so much for giving me a little sliver of your time. And I'm so excited. And to be very transparent, I've been going back and forth in my head about what to say on this podcast, and perfectionism definitely tried to take the wheel, but I'm here, you're here, and I'm happy to be recording and to be showing up because I think sometimes that's all that really matters. And I think taking those small steps really do end up adding up. So I'm glad that we're here because that's really what this podcast is all about. It's about us showing up for ourselves and showing up for the lives that we want. And I know sometimes that could be a little bit hard because sometimes we don't have the mentors in our immediate circle that have done what we want to do, or maybe you're feeling stuck and you want to be thriving instead, or maybe you're living an okay life, but what you actually want is to be more than all right. And you want to feel amazing and thriving and like you love your life. And you totally deserve that. And as someone who has scoured the internet and read all the books, not literally all the books, but you know what I mean. And also done therapy because you have to do therapy. You can't just go to therapy. Anyways, because I've done all of that to help me through rough patches, but also to level up, I now want to share that with you and help you level up and live the life of your dreams, whatever that means to you. Hey, I'm not here to tell you how you should live your life. I am here more than anything to be a guide and to bring together our collective wisdom, both mine and guest, and maybe even yours, to really get the conversation going about important topics like our relationships, our career, our money, our community, all the things, all these different aspects of life that are important to us. This podcast is really for people who want more out of life but might not know what the next step looks like. We're going to be exploring how small intentional choices are going to make the biggest difference. And one of the analogies that I sometimes think about is if you think of an airplane, right? They usually have their course mapped out about how to get to point B. But if that plane changes its course by 5 degrees at any point, over the course of the whole trip, they're going to actually end up at a completely different destination. And whenever you think about the small habits that you're doing on your day to day, the small changes that you're doing on the day to day, and you're thinking, this isn't really making a difference. Yes, it is. And the fact that a 5 degree difference makes such a big change over the long run for that plane, that 5% change that you're implementing into your life, it is also going to play out and make big changes within your life. And I've seen this happen over and over again. I myself grew up feeling very unrooted. By the time I was 11, I had moved to maybe around like 5 cities or more by that age. So very, very regularly, I was the new kid on the block. And as you can imagine, I didn't feel like I really belonged with any particular community. But lucky for me, I found an anchor within school and within books, and that instilled this value of just being a lifetime learner and seeing how much wisdom we were able to pass on to each other through books. And later on in life, of course, I ended up picking up knowledge through other avenues as well, podcasts just like this, mentors in my life. I think if we're actually open to receiving lessons and keep that mindset in mind, we actually have the opportunity to take in so much information and so many lessons and learn from the mistakes of others. So, yeah, I've always been a lifetime learner, and that actually ended up working out in my favor really early on. I had the opportunity to earn some scholarships that allowed me to go to college on a full ride. So I wasn't necessarily worrying about finances on the day to day. And I am so thankful to my past self, one, for really showing up for myself in school and two, for the people that saw potential in communities that haven't always had the resources to do things like go to college. And I think the fact that those two things played out in my favor is just amazing. And I feel so privileged because I had the chance to go to a college out on the East Coast, and it was so different, I would say, to the high school that I had graduated from, because the high school that I had graduated from, if I remember correctly, there were around 3,000 students there. And my college in total, for all of the undergrads, there was a total of around 1,200 students. Like, that is a huge difference. And the relationships with the professors were just so different, and they were a lot more personable. And I feel like I got a really good education out of that. And it wasn't just learning the academics, like your math, science, writing, that type of thing, but I also got to learn a lot about myself. And I actually went into college thinking that I wanted to be a doctor because I thought that that was like the way to help my community. And as it turns out, through taking college coursework, I realized that there's actually so much more that I didn't know. So I ended up majoring in chemistry, but I also took a minor in health studies, which is kind of like my school's version of public health. And I realized that there was so much more to health and wellness. And I was going to be a very frustrated doctor because I wanted to dive into all the things that actually happen outside of a doctor's office that were influencing our health. So, as I was getting ready for graduation, I was really thinking about what my next chapter was going to look like. And I think the thing that most people were encouraging me to do was to apply to medical school and just go straight through. And I think what was actually calling to me on the inside was to not do that, to pause and to go explore the world. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up graduating and I dived into the workforce, again, being guided by the sense that I wanted to help my community. With those as my guiding principles, I ended up working with a variety of groups and organizations and government agencies and dived into everything from grassroots organizing to help push for policies that would increase access to healthcare, that would allow people to see a doctor when they needed to see a doctor. I ended up working with community health centers that really tried to serve anyone who walked through their doors. I ended up working with environmental health organizations and environmental advocates to protect the resources that are so important to us. Think our air, our water, our soil. And I loved each of those journeys. And what had happened is at some point I actually ended up hitting a point where I was really struggling with life. There had been some family circumstances that had come up, and I didn't have the skill set to navigate those, especially because as I ended up learning a lot of the present day difficulties that I was having with my family was actually bringing up and stirring up a lot of experiences from my childhood. And I ended up learning that there was a lot of trauma that I had to heal. And I ended up luckily getting support through therapy, but I was always again, I was a book nerd. So I also read a lot of self-development books to kind of just try to understand and try to help myself. And it was through that where there is this message that kept coming back to me over and over again. And it was about how important it was to be intentional in the thoughts that we are giving our energy to, and how we spend our time, our money, our energy, and even how we talk to ourselves and the world around us. Because all of the things that we give our attention to is what ends up shaping the reality of our lives. And as much as there are circumstances that are outside of control, there's actually so much within our control. And it's being able to tune into that and know that you are able to oftentimes make a pivot for the better. And I think this is so important because I believe that we're all interconnected. And I think if we're able to take care of ourselves, it's actually going to have positive ripple effects across our family and our community and just the world. Because just think about when you go into work and either your boss or a coworker isn't in a good mood and how that changes the vibe in the environment. Like you feel that change. And it's because of things like that where I truly, truly, truly believe that if we're able to look after ourselves and we are living the best life that we want to be living, that's only going to actually end up working out for all of us. And I'm not saying that you are going to be living your best life at the cost of anyone else. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm actually saying is that you can live your best life while also being a part of community and having relationships. So, yeah, if all of that is resonating with you, continue to tune in because we're just getting started, and I'll be sharing more of my journey, lessons, and insights I've learned, as well as having conversations with guests who are living with intention in different ways. And my hope is that you leave each episode feeling inspired, grounded, and ready to take on your next step. So, thank you so much for tuning in to this first episode and being with me at the very start of the journey. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Oh, and also, I'm kind of new here, but I've heard that reviews are very important. So if you want to get this podcast out there, please feel free to leave a review and maybe even share it with a friend as well. Okay, toodles. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Rooted in Intention. Until next time, and remember to keep showing up for the life, relationships, and community you want. Now go, grow the life you want